Hello and welcome. My name is Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UFO, UAP news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'd like to relate something I saw on UFO Ed Extraterrestri. It involves a cylindrical UFO that predates the 2004 USS Nimitz Tic Tac. On June 18th, 1979, the non-commissioned officer and pilot Giancarlo Ciccone had just concluded an aerial photographic reconnaissance. During the overflight between the city of Rogigo and the hills of Albana Terme, he received a radio communication from the control tower in Stradella. Their radar had reported an unidentified flying object not far from the airport. Marshall belonged to the 14th Group of the 2nd Fighter Bomber Reconnaissance Wing of the Air Force. And at that moment, he was on board a G-91R, equipped with 4 cameras, 2 of which had been installed on the sides of the front part of the cockpit, another in the frontal position, and the 4th in the ventral position. After hearing the control tower's call, he agreed to go and identify the unusual object detected shortly before by the radar. At the time of the sighting, he thought it could be a solar UFO. That is, a solar balloon device in suspension. But then he actually realized that it was something different, and he soon understood that that black aircraft had very different characteristics. It appeared to him to have a cylindrical shape, similar to the tanks on a lot of fuel trucks. The upper part, which was slightly more flattened, he noticed a fairing with 2 whiskers. This was under something with a light shade, which, in his opinion, was a sort of small dome of milky white color. The dark black characteristics of the surface did not allow the refraction of light, and at the time, it was located exactly over the military airport of Treviso at an altitude of about 1,300 meters or 4,000 feet approximately. After having had further contacts with the control tower, Marshal Ciccone began to take a series of photographs with the front camera. And after having reversed his route, he noticed that the object was still in the same position. So much so that he was able to take another series of photographs using the lateral cameras this time. He said it had a certain rigidity, and it was definitely solid. He deduced this from the fact that when his plane approached the object at a speed of about 500 kilometers per hour or 310 miles per hour, the object did not show any turbulence or particular movement, as he had noticed on other occasions when flying in the immediate vicinity of the solar UFOs suspended in the air, which then oscillated for at least a quarter of an hour. This object, however, appeared to remain static without any vibrations, despite Marshall having passed it at a close distance of about 100 meters or 310 feet during that encounter. The sighting itself lasted about 5 minutes. Ciccone was able to take more than 80 photographs, which always showed the object in the same frontal position or slightly angled. It seemed to him that the strange aircraft was always in a defensive position, as it never completely exposed its side. As a result, Ciccone was never able to photograph it entirely from the side. He was very surprised when he came around for another turn and the object had disappeared from sight. The radar center informed him that it was no longer visible on their screen as well. It had vanished into thin air, and the control tower reported to him that the object had inexplicably disappeared from their instruments. The UFO was no longer in front of his airspace, and after he returned his military aircraft to the Treviso Air Base, the specialists, as usual, removed and took the film containers and took them to the department's laboratory for development and processing. As soon as the photos were developed, Ciccone asked for copies. Years after Ciccone retired, some ufologists asked the Italian Military of Defense to release the documentation on this case. And the response they got was that the photo lab staff had unequivocally determined that the object in question was no more than a hot air balloon made of plastic bags. So what Ciccone saw back in 1979 was definitely not a hot air balloon made out of plastic bags. Here's a quick recap just to make that crystal clear. The actual truth is that at 11:30 a.m. that day, the control tower recorded the presence of an intruding object on its radar screens and gave Ciccone instructions to approach the unidentified aircraft that had entered a prohibited military area. Still having some unused film in the cameras of his plane, Ciccone activated them and approached the UFO to a distance of about 100 meters with an estimated speed of about 500 kilometers per hour. At that moment, the airport ground staff followed the whole scene with binoculars while the control tower called Ciccone to warn him that the object was discharging a strange blue trail. During the approach to that object, it made movements up and down at 1,000 feet at a time, climbing up to 13,000 feet. Ciccone made up to 7 or 8 passes near the UFO, and each time he took some pictures. In total, he obtained a total of 82 frames that depicted the unusual object. During those maneuvers, the UFO even seemed to be stationary compared to the movement of Marshal Ciccone's G-91. Ciccone remembered it being in the shape of a fuel tanker truck's body and the color of matte black with a small white dome or transparent bubble located on the upper side of the slightly flattened object. Ciccone said that the dome had a shape similar to those on race cars. He also said that the cylindrical object was not exactly that small. In fact, it was 8 meters long, or about 26 feet long. That strange object that Ciccone recorded was definitely not a hot air balloon. In fact, it was strangely like the Tic Tac that Commander Fravor recorded while accompanying the USS Nimitz in 2004 off the coast of San Diego.
On November 14, 2004, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was conducting routine training exercises off the coast of San Diego when the radar spotted an unidentified object flying chaotically. FA-18 fighter pilots were sent to intercept the object, but when they arrived, they saw something incredible. It was an object shaped like a giant Tic Tac, hovering and darting around with movements that defied the laws of physics. The Tic Tac UFO had no visible wings, no exhaust, and moved at hypersonic speeds. It dropped from 80,000 feet to just above sea level in less than 1 second, something no human-made aircraft can do. And it wasn't just the pilot's accounts. Infrared footage captured by the fighter jets confirmed it. This object was real, and to this day, the Tic Tac UFO remains unexplained.
So the object recorded by Commander Fravor 40 years later is very similar to Ciccone's object. Only difference might be the color. Ciccone's was matte black and Commander Fravor's was white. It's interesting, though, that Ciccone noticed a cabin or some sort of a dome on the top of his cigar or Tic Tac shaped UFO. And in my opinion, Ciccone's object was definitely not a hot air balloon made out of plastic bags. There's no way that a hot air balloon would be able to make those sudden maneuvers of ascending and descending so quickly. My name is Al Barrows. This has been UFO Disclosure. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.